Welcome back to another episode of HeyBucket Live. I'm your host, Sammy Glantz, and this week we have on Lady Vols softball legend and current analyst at ESPN, Madison Shipman. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the podcast today.
Of course. Thank you guys for having me.
So you are now living in Knoxville, Tennessee, but before you became a four-time All-American at Tennessee and planted your roots there now, you were from Valencia, California. You were a SoCal softball girl playing for the SoCal Choppers. What was that like growing up in Southern California?
Well, you can't beat the weather out in Southern California, that's for sure. And that was one of the things that made softball so fun was we got to play all year round, because in Southern California, it is sunny and 75 majority of the days out of the year. So that is exactly what I spent my entire childhood doing, was playing softball. And I had so much fun. Like you said, I played for the SoCal Choppers once I was a freshman in high school. Before that, I kind of jumped around from team to team until I really stuck my roots in with the Choppers from my freshman year all the way until when I graduated high school, and then from there went on to Knoxville. A little bit of change of weather in Knoxville, but I actually kind of like the change in seasons.
Did you grow up playing any other sports? I know you grew up in a very athletic family. Your little brother ended up playing football in college. Your little sister, Allie, obviously plays at University of Tennessee. She plays softball there now. Your older sister was a cheerleader. What was that like growing up in that family?
Well, I actually always wanted to be a cheerleader like my older sister. Now, I didn't anticipate being 6 feet tall, so being 6 feet tall and being thrown up in the air isn't typically a good combination, but it's actually one thing I never did was cheer. I did play soccer and I played basketball. My dad was really hoping I was going to love basketball and that was going to be the sport that I chose, but I ended up going with softball.
The impact of your dad. Did he coach you all the way through? I know he coached your little sister, Allie, a little bit, but what was his impact on you and your softball career?
I am definitely a daddy's girl, that's for sure. We spent literally every weekend together. My mom was always with my brother, taking him to all his football and baseball games. And so my dad was with me a lot, taking me to my softball stuff. And he coached me all the way throughout my career. There would be times even in college where, you know, the mental aspect of the game was something that I didn't anticipate being so tough once I got to the college level. And I would call him up and he would help walk me through, and just somebody, you know, you're familiar with. And I would just talk him through certain at-bats against certain pitchers or certain teams that maybe I was having a tough time with. But he was a huge influence on my career. And honestly, he's still a huge influence in my day-to-day life now, even though I'm not playing anymore.
So going back to your days with the SoCal Choppers, you were playing for Dean and Gary Fawcett. I actually played for the Choppers for a little bit as well in my high school days. What was that experience like for you? I know a lot of girls, they go down to Orange County now and they choose to play out there, but you stayed at home and you played in Valencia. I feel like that's something that's really different about your story.
I would say that one of the biggest impacts they had on my career was my growth, specifically my freshman year in high school. I was one of the younger girls on the team. It was a team that was full of seniors that were already committed to go play D1 softball. So I learned a ton from them. And Dean and Gary really pushed me. They didn't treat me like a freshman. They treated me exactly the same as the seniors, and they held that standard up there for me. So I never looked at myself as being so much younger than those girls, because I wanted to be just as good, if not better than they were. So I really, really appreciate Dean and Gary so much for that, for not treating me any differently just because I was the young kid on the team, but really pushing me to be as good as I possibly could. And that was really one of the big reasons why I ended up staying in Valencia and not necessarily traveling down to Orange County to play for one of the bigger travel ball organizations at the time.
I feel like it's almost like a college atmosphere too, because now you're a freshman playing amongst women, like these girls are 18 years old, and you're definitely going to learn a lot being around them. Do you feel like that benefited you going into college, being around all these older girls? I know some coaches are now saying that, maybe playing with your age group will help you with the recruiting process, but what do you believe with that?
Playing up and playing with girls that were older than I was something that I did, honestly, from when I was 10 years old. I was always the 10-year-old playing on the 12 and under team, or the 11-year-old playing on the 14 and under team. And it was something that I definitely think prepared me for the collegiate level, because once you get out there, whether it's in preseason tournaments or if it's at the Women's College World Series, they don't care if you're a freshman or a senior. They're going to play you just as hard as anybody else. So in my opinion, you really only have the opportunity to be a freshman in the fall of your freshman year. I'll never forget those first couple of days of practice, just the speed of the game and how fast some of my teammates like Raven Siobhan and Kelly Grieve were. And I realized that I didn't have any time to be a freshman. I had to go out there and I had to compete with and beat my own teammates if I thought that I was going to even have a chance of competing against the other girls across the country.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially at University of Tennessee, it's one of the most prestigious teams in the country. What was that experience like for you playing for Ralph and Karen Weekly at the University of Tennessee?
Well, when I was choosing a college, I wanted to go somewhere where I knew I was going to compete for a national championship. And when I went on my visit to the University of Tennessee, you could just tell how competitive both Ralph and Karen are. And it doesn't matter if it's softball or going bowling or just little competitions that they have in the clubhouse. That was something that I really, really enjoyed about the two of them, was just how competitive they were in every single aspect of their lives. I'm very similar to that, so I could definitely relate to a lot of the stuff that they were talking about. But that was something that I looked for in a school, and I was fortunate enough to be able to compete in the Women's College World Series a couple of times throughout my career. But I wanted to go somewhere that was not only a place that, again, I could compete for a national championship, but somewhere that was going to push me beyond what I thought I could do as far as my skill level on the field. And being surrounded by, like I said, my teammates, Katherine Dotson, Lauren Gibson, Raven Siobhan, every single day, not only were my coaches pushing me, but my teammates were pushing me to be as good as I possibly could in every single facet of the game.
What were some of the things that you kind of touched on that Karen and Ralph taught you about the mental game, or some of the other lessons off the field that you learned while playing for them?
Well, as far as on the field stuff, Ralph still likes to joke that there was never a pitch that I didn't like, which is still sort of true. But Karen and I worked a lot, especially my junior and my senior year, of not just swinging at pitches that I knew I could make contact with, but swinging at pitches that I knew I could hit well. And I think that was something that I almost not necessarily fought it, but I thought that I could just go up there and hit whatever those pitchers were throwing up there. But it took me a while to realize that if I were a little bit more picky, a little bit more selfish in my at-bats, that I would actually ultimately benefit in the long run. So that was something that we worked on a ton, with going over film work, just talking about the at-bats as a whole, what pitches that maybe I shouldn't have swung at, or maybe I should have swung at, depending on the counts and the situations. But as far as off the field stuff, I really, really appreciate Karen for pushing us to be independent women and striving for our goals no matter what they were. I anticipated being a college coach out of school, and Karen was like, "Are you sure you want to be a college coach? Are you positive?" And at the time I was like, yes, absolutely. But she always pushed me to explore other opportunities. And once I was presented with the opportunity to be a commentator for ESPN, I felt like I found something that I truly, truly loved. And so we always joke back and forth that she was always the one that was like, "Are you sure you want to coach? Are you really sure?" And it took me 3 years to figure out that I actually wanted to do stuff for ESPN. But she was always an influence in pushing us to be independent and go for our dreams. And here we are living the dream right now.
Yeah, maybe she was dropping some little hints for you or something there.
I know, right? Every single day. Are you sure you want to do this?
I was listening to some of your post-game interviews from when you were at Tennessee, and you were just always so polished and smooth. I feel like when you were on camera, like I feel like this just comes so naturally to you. But
well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I do remember sweating quite a bit during some of those post-game interviews. So hopefully I've gotten that out of my system at least a little bit.
It's definitely a very different transition, you know, from being on the field to now being an analyst. What's some of the biggest tips or something that you had to really adjust to from moving into this analyst chair?
Being on the analyst side, I think one of the things I really enjoyed about my transition, I guess if you want to call it that, was I didn't immediately go from being a player to being an analyst. I got an opportunity to coach for those 3 years. So I think it gave me a different perspective, not just what you see being on the field, but from a coaching perspective, why certain decisions are made. And I got to be in those meetings with Ralph and Karen rather than being a part of a player that was listening to your coaches. I got to listen to how they determine how they want to do lineups, or, you know, what strategies they might have for different teams depending on what type of team they're playing. So I like to really take some of those things that I learned being a coach and that coach side of it into the analyst side. So that was something for me that even though, you know, like I joke, Karen was like, are you sure you want to do this? It was really something that continues to help me to this day, that I'm not just looking at things from a player perspective, but a coach perspective as well.
Yeah, the whole package and your whole journey has made you better at now your new job, which is so awesome. What was that like, coaching under Karen and learning under her as the assistant coach? I know you had the opportunity to now be on the recruiting aspect as well, and then your sister ends up committing to go play at Tennessee also. What was that like for you? I'm sure that was just an incredible moment.
I will say that I told my sister and I told the rest of my family that I wanted nothing to do with her recruiting at Tennessee, because I didn't want to be the reason that she came there. I wanted her to go to a school that she wanted to go to. So I did not host her at all on any of her visits. I wanted her to have her own true experience when she got to come on campus. So I kind of stayed in the background on a lot of those things. But yeah, I got to listen to how Ralph and Karen are very different as far as analyzing opposing teams. Ralph is very much, you know, we're going to hit the long ball and we're going to hit home runs, and that's how we're going to win. And Karen is a lot more analytical. Her background as a lawyer kind of comes out. She likes to dissect every little thing about the opponents. So for me, I like to take a little bit from Ralph, a little bit from Karen. And that's kind of how I approached the coaching side for me. And again, when it comes to being an analyst, there's no right way or wrong way to do it. Everybody has their own way. And I think being able to pick up little tidbits on how they dissected the opponents is something that I got to take advantage of now, being on the analyst side, dissecting, you know, both teams, how each team's going to be different, how they're going to be matched up against each other. So took a lot of things from both Ralph and Karen. But as far as the recruiting side, like I said, with my sister, I wanted to be as hands-off as possible because I knew that it was a big decision and I wanted her to make that decision for herself and not come all the way across the country just because that's what I had done a couple of years before her.
Yeah, and now your whole family lives over there, so it's definitely worked out in your favor.
My evil plan, yes, it all came together.
So you guys that were both recruited by the University of Tennessee and you both have played there. So you've kind of seen the recruiting process in its evolution over the years. Your sister committed at a very young age. I believe she was probably in 8th grade. But what have you seen the changes from when you first committed there to her, and then now how the recruiting process is still continuing to grow and evolve?
I think there's quite a few things that are different. When Allie committed at such a young age, she was one of the few that was committing that early, whereas now I feel like you see it happening a lot more frequently. Another thing that I think has impacted the recruiting, which wasn't a big deal when I was getting recruited, is social media. It's something that I think people are using to their advantage to be recruited. I see a lot of things that pop up on my feed from people that I don't necessarily follow, but they'll tag college coaches in it. So then everybody ends up seeing it, whether it be a video of them lifting weights in the weight room or fielding ground balls or hitting BP. I think that's something that's really transformed the game as well, because you're getting a look at these players, not just at the tournaments, not just at the big recruiting tournaments, but also in their day-to-day lives on their social media. Another thing I think for college coaches with the social media is you kind of get a glimpse into their personalities as well. And you can look at those social medias and say, hey, is this personality going to be a good fit for our program? Those things that you put out on social media never go away. So that was one of the things that I looked at as well when I was a volunteer assistant for Tennessee, was I would check out their social medias to see if they might be a good fit for our program. So I think that's where obviously the recruiting is far different than it was when I was playing, but in my opinion, those are the biggest things that I think have changed.
Oh my gosh. I remember growing up, I was hearing about Madison Shipman and I was watching you in the Women's College World Series. And I'm going to take you back to 2013 and the legendary 12-inning game. You know exactly where I'm going with this. So you end up, it's 0-0 going into the 11th, right? And then you hit the 3-run home run to put you guys ahead over the Sooners. And then Lauren Chamberlain comes off and Lauren Chamberlain style walks it off. What was that game like for you? I remember everyone was glued to their TV. No one could turn that game off, but I couldn't imagine playing in that game.
I'm a very competitive person and I do not like to lose, but that game was hands down the most fun softball game I have ever played in. It was just one of those games where the teams on both sides just weren't making mistakes. We were making plays in the field. The pitchers were going out there doing their thing. Ellen Renfro threw a gem of a game. And of course, you had Kehlani Ricketts on the other side. It was just one of those games where I look back and I can literally remember every single inning and every feeling and how excited we were to be out there. And it was just so much fun. Now, I will say every once in a while when it pops up back on TV, it's kind of hard for me to watch the ending of the game because I know what happens, but still just so much talent on both sides of the field in that game. And it was so much fun to be a part of. I do remember that 11th inning and Kat Dotson got on base and Lauren Gibson got on base. And I remember thinking, walking up to the plate, this is my opportunity to try to score some runs here, because if I don't do it here, I don't know when it's going to happen. And sure enough, I watched the first pitch go by, strike one. And in my head, I'm thinking, well, there goes my pitch. I just blew it. And I stepped out of the box, tried to flush it in my mind. And don't tell Karen I said this, but I was like, I am swinging at this pitch and I am swinging as hard as I possibly can. Sure enough, it hits my bat. And that ball ended up going out of the park. I had no idea. I thought it was just going to be a line drive in the gap. So I took off sprinting. And our assistant coach at the time, Marty McDaniel, was over at first base. He's like, slow down. It went out. It went out. So at that point, lost our minds. We were so excited. And then, of course, everybody knows what happened with the Sooners ended up coming back and Chamberlain doing what Chamberlain does and hitting that walk-off home run down the left field line. But still, ultimately, the most fun game I have ever been a part of. And unfortunately, it ended up going the Sooners' way, but that's all right. It was still a legendary game.
Oh, absolutely. It was electric. But just playing in the Women's College World Series, that's just so surreal with all the fans and how much publicity now we're getting for the sport of softball. It's so incredible to see the growth. And I feel like that was a huge turning point for the game. Have you, like, how exciting is that for you to be able to see how this game has grown? And now that you're an analyst and now you get to kind of watch it from this perspective.
It's absolutely amazing. You just look at the growth in the stadium itself and the improvements that they're doing to it, and how they're catering to the TV side so that the rest of the country can watch what a great sport we have. And being able to have the opportunity to be there, not just as a player, but a coach and an analyst as well, has given me a whole new perspective on that tournament. When I first showed up, the first time was my sophomore year, and you're just in awe. You work all fall, you work all spring, and you finally get to the place that you've been working your tails off for all season long. And it was, I don't know if overwhelming is the right word, but you just feel this sense of pride that you finally made it there, and your teammates are all there, and you're just so excited to be there. When we went back in 2013, my junior year, we had a little bit more of revenge on the brain. So I guess it was a different perspective there. And as a coach, of course, you're just preparing as much as you possibly can to play against the best teams in the country. And now that I get the opportunity to be there as an analyst, just to really take in the entire experience and watch the best teams in the country fight it out, and just see the growth in the fans and how invested the fans are. And being able to talk to some of the fans that don't even have a particular team that they're there rooting for. They just love the sport so much. And that's why they're there. They plan their whole summers just to be around that Oklahoma City tournament. And I think that's something that's really special about our sport, is we have people that support, of course, the universities themselves, but also just the sport in general, because they love watching it. They love watching the passion on the field, how much fun the girls have. And of course, you have tons of talented players out there that are super fun to watch as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the talent, the passion, the speed of the game. Like I know a lot of baseball fans that are like, I'd much rather watch softball. Like I can't miss these games. Like this is so much fun, And it's been so incredible just to see the growth of the game. You played in the SEC conference, which is one of the best softball conferences in the country. What was that experience like? And especially playing for the Lady Vols. I got to play one regional there with the University of Utah, and it was absolutely electric there. Like the fans were nuts. They're chanting. They're all dressed up. I've never seen anything like that.
Well, it's funny you say that, because on my recruiting visit, when I was, the sophomore in high school, we went to a football game. And I had never in my life seen so many people dressed up in orange. And it was just a sea of people wearing the exact same color. And I think something about growing up in Southern California, there's so many different universities in such a short, area down there, that you have fans of a ton of different schools, UCLA, USC, whatever it may be. There's tons of fans of everybody, which is awesome. But when I came out to the University of Tennessee, it felt like the entire state just bled orange. So I think that's something that was very special to me. And one of the reasons why I ended up committing to go play at Tennessee was because of the support.
So you literally fell in love in Knoxville, and figuratively. You met your husband there at University of Tennessee. Can you kind of take us back to how you guys met and your engagement story? I stalked your Instagram a little bit. I want to hear all about it.
Yeah, of course. So I actually met my now husband through one of my former teammates, Jessica Mendoza, my freshman year. She was friends with one of the guys on the football team, Ben Martin, and he was good friends with my now husband, Kyle. So we actually met through mutual friends and started off as friends, and he had never watched a softball game in his entire life. And little did he know that he was going to be watching a lot of softball for a very long time. And he still does. Of course, he watches my younger sister as well. And watches the games that I broadcast. But that's kind of how we met. The fall of my freshman year back in 2010, it was the first time that we met. And after I graduated, I always wanted a puppy. And I love dogs. I'm a huge dog person. And we were going out to dinner one night, and he said, "Oh, put on this blindfold. We've got to stop somewhere first before we're going to go to dinner." And I'm thinking in my mind, oh my gosh, I'm finally getting a puppy. I was so excited. And so I have this blindfold on, and he leads me out of the car, And I'm thinking, man, these puppies are awfully quiet. Like, I don't hear anything. And sure enough, we walk over and he takes the blindfold off. And I was coaching at the University of Tennessee at the time. And so a lot of the players and Ralph and Karen were actually there. And he had shirts printed that said, "Be my wife." And it was all the girls that I was coaching, and they were all by the river that runs right through campus. And of course I said yes. And here we are. Gosh, it's been over a decade since I met my husband. But 4 years of marriage later, and I still love that story. It's still so it seems like just yesterday, but I guess that was 5 years ago that he proposed.
Oh my gosh, all the feels. I couldn't imagine, like, your whole entire team is just out there, and then your coaches who you literally have grown up with now, and you got to all share that special moment. That's so surreal.
Yes, it was amazing. He put a lot of thought into it, and it was pretty funny. Our associate athletic director, Mike Ward, at the time, happened to be on a jog by the river. So he even got to be a part of our proposal as well. That was just a surprise. But yeah, I didn't end up getting a puppy that day. We do have 2 dogs now, so I ended up getting puppies eventually. But yeah, that's always the joke, was that I thought it was going to be a puppy, but it ended up being a proposal, which was definitely a lot better.
We'll take it. We'll take it. So now you have your 2 puppies, you got a husband, and you have a baby who just turned 1 last month. Oh my goodness.
So that is a whole new thing for me. Yes, Kellen is my son. He turned 1 in December, and he just started walking about 2 weeks ago. So that is a whole new world for me, but it is so much fun being a mom. I always thought college workouts and being a college athlete was hard. Being a mother is definitely a lot tougher than that, but it is so rewarding. Every time he smiles, my heart just melts. And of course, we've already got him lined up. He's got a little basketball hoop. He's got a baseball tee. He's got all the sports stuff already. So we're already planning on him being a little athlete as well.
Oh yeah, he only has 1 school to go to, right? He's got to go to Tennessee.
I know, right? He's going to bleed orange from the start.
The bar set pretty high, but he's got it.
Yes, absolutely. My dad's already coaching him up too. My dad does hope that he's left-handed, although I don't know if he's going to get his wish on that one, but he thinks maybe if he throws right-handed, he can get him to hit left-handed. So that's the plan from my dad's side.
Oh my gosh, you should see my dad. My dad, that was his one goal for my little sister. He just started her left-handed. So she hits lefty, throws righty. He was like, I'm not going to make that same mistake with her. He's like, she's going to do it the right way.
Well, he started throwing a lot of things left-handed, so we thought maybe we're going to have a lefty, and my nephew is actually left-handed as well. So we thought, okay, maybe we're going to have another lefty in the family, but then all of a sudden he started throwing things with his right hand. So now Dad's determined to at least have him hit lefty, and then he can throw righty.
That's ideal. That's perfect. He's going to be a little stud.
Nothing like 1 year old and already having your athletic career planned out for you.
Welcome to the family, son. I want to take you back to when you first started getting involved with ESPN and everything. Was there anyone that you looked up to? I know that you mentioned, Jessica Mendoza was interviewing you when you were younger. And what's your relationship like with Jessica Mendoza, and what's the impact that she's had on you in your career?
Well, I actually, like I said, I got to talk to her, in interviews and stuff when I was a player at the University of Tennessee, but I also got the opportunity to speak with her on the phone before I went and played professional ball for the USSSA Pride. I guess that was right before my rookie year. I got an opportunity to talk to her on the phone about her experience, because that was the team that she had played for. And of course, that was before I knew I wanted to embark on the ESPN career. But just somebody who is so accomplished athletically, but you can just tell works so hard in everything that she does. And now that I'm on the analyst side of things, she has gone above and beyond what I think anybody had anticipated for her, as far as just all the barriers that she's been able to break And for me, I know it makes it so much more fun being able to watch a lot of those MLB games, knowing that somebody who has gone through a similar path that I'm going through now has made it to be so successful in that business. And I'm a baseball person too. I love watching baseball. So being able to hear her analyze some of my favorite players to watch is really a lot of fun. But she's somebody that I would definitely aspire to be. I would love the opportunity to be able to call baseball games and honestly anything out there. I just really thoroughly enjoy my job. And I love the sports world, whether it be softball, baseball, football, you name it. I am constantly watching ESPN on our TV. So that's something that I definitely want to be like Jessica Mendoza, I would say, in my professional career.
Yeah, she's been such an incredible idol. I mean, for all of us softball girls growing up, especially from, Southern California, and she was from the Camarillo area. I remember watching her and wanting to be just like her, I feel like she was everyone's idol, and it's so cool now to be in the sports world and she's still my idol, like she's just always kind of been that person to everyone. So it's been super cool to see her growth. And I'm so excited to see your journey and along all of this, and to be able to watch you grow as an analyst and everything. I know you're going to be out there televising and broadcasting for baseball games or whatever you want to do pretty soon. You're pretty good at everything you do. So I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Baseball, softball, you name it. I want to be out there doing it.
All right. Well, this is our favorite part of HeyBucket Live. This is our little speed round. So I'll just ask you a quick question and we will keep it moving. I'm excited.
All right. Bring it on.
All right. First question. If you are not broadcasting, if you're not on your mom duty, what does Madison Shipman like to do in her free time?
I love to bake. I love watching baking shows. I love eating desserts.
What's your go-to?
I'm a big cake person. I actually, for my son's first birthday, I made him a baseball-shaped smash cake. So I was very proud of that.
Oh my gosh. So you're like a professional chef too now.
I don't know if I would call it a professional. It looks really good. Really good from a distance. Just don't get too close.
It's all about the taste anyways, though. So especially for the 1-year-old. Mm-hmm. All right. If you had to pick one, coffee or wine?
Ooh, wine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Definitely going to go with wine. I think it might depend on the day and how I'm feeling in the morning, because I love my coffee, but I'm going to have to go with wine.
So do you have any other hidden talents that we should know about? Anything, any water sports? We already know about your kitchen ability.
Yes. Besides my kitchen abilities, I actually, we are lucky enough to live really close to the lake here in Knoxville. So when I'm not doing softball or baking, we do a lot of surfing behind the boat. I wakeboarded when I was younger. I don't do it as much anymore, but I also love to snowboard too in the winter. So a little bit of extreme sports in there for you.
Oh, that's pretty elite. When it's all said and done and everyone's careers are over, who's going to be the better softball player, you or Allie?
Oh, I'm going to say me 100%. If you ask her, she's going to say her. We are a very competitive family, that's for sure. But we are super supportive of one another. But I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm going to take the cake on the best career.
Well, maybe one day we'll have to hear from Allie and see what she thinks.
Yes, you're definitely going to have to bring her on, because she would 100% say that it's going to be her.
I love it. I love the little rivalry you guys got going on. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. It was awesome getting to chat with you, and I am so excited to continue to see your success in our sport and our game. And thanks for being all of our idols growing up. You're awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. For more content like this, be sure to check out fastpitchfilms.com. I'm your host, Sammy Glantz. See you guys next time.